Good morning. This is Pop's just killing time. Dog got me up. It wasn't even 1 o'clock yet. Barfing all over the place. Do you have one of these? It's a Fluke 101. Or can you read it better this way? No? Okay. Now the other thing is you want to get leads on here that are either replaceable leads so you can pull them off, or like these, the larger thread, you can screw on little gator clips. That's all you can get for these, as far as I know, is little gator clips. But they work really very well together for a lot of things. If you get the more expensive Fluke leads, that they actually are, they're like the banana clips here, just has a banana plug on them, both ends. Then you can put on different accessories. You can put on the probes, you can put on, and separately put on gator clips, different style gator clips. You can get some that are bull nose, they're reaching in things. You can get wire piercers, all kinds of stuff on the ends of them. Or, as I had mentioned yesterday with the Matco kit of short leads, where one end is the female receptor for the banana clip and the other end is different styles of electrical connectors, from spades, different sizes of spades and rounds, and all the way on up to bullets and such. And they will fit on the end of the replaceable cables. Now the funny thing is, the replaceable cable has this exact tight fit, that exact end on it on both ends. The only difference is one end's 90 and the other end's straight. Now the curiosity about having those as your test leads, always have a backup set. In fact, mine is I got one of those round ones where you can draw them out like 5 or 6 feet or something. It's a reel with the same type of ends on it, and you can put different accessories, or you can put a gator clip on each end and turn it into a test lead. So I've done different things over the years. They used to have push-on ends for this. Just put them right on. They had others in the past. They'd have a little groove here near the end, so you could click them on. And they used to have others that you could screw onto here differently, but for the most part anymore, no. And unfortunately, there's 2 different sizes of screw-on thread. I'm not sure what that is. If I had to guess, I'd say 5 or 6 millimeter. That's hard. Mainly, I'm up now. What's the time? 4:50 in the morning, Sunday, May 19th, and I'm not going to be able to go to church today. Why? Because since about midnight, I've had a little over 1 hour's sleep. The dogs had me up, dumping water, moving from place to place, and then just after a while, you're up. So anyway, what I want to talk about today is I had made a test lead for testing your ignition coils on tractors. In particular, I've had it for decades at this point. I think I made that thing 30 years ago or more. But, and it's pretty simple. There's a lot of stuff like that that I could build afterwards that I couldn't build working for companies that would have saved the company a heck of a lot of money and time. But no, you don't build that on company time. They get mad. You build it on your time. Well, you're not paying me enough to do that, so no, I don't do that. In fact, in one case, they had a guy that was taken home. No, we're talking an incompetent boob. We're not talking, I'm not talking, I thought of him as an incompetent boob, and 2 or 3 others in the shop considered him and judged him as an incompetent boob, as well as one of the owners, 2 of the owners. There are actually 4 owners in the business. One was a silent partner. The other one was the original owner, as a semi-silent partner, would come in and put in his opinion once in a while when he thought things were out of line. And because, well, they still had a vested interest. He was getting part of the profits. Well, he turned it over to the kids with that idea. And there was 2 of the owners considered the guy an incompetent boob. So it wasn't just like me talking. And he got paid the same amount of money showing up 3 or 4 days a week to work. And he got caught twice drinking in a bar when he was supposed to be combining corn. Didn't do a thing about it. Too hard to find mechanics. We're picking up after him. You don't need him, thank you. So, we got paid the same every week. Whether he showed up or not, that was a problem. So no, I didn't get paid enough to do that. So you say sour grapes and all that. No, that's just describing to you that when those situations come up, don't give your employer any more. Just smile and say, sorry, I can't afford it. So what are we supposed to do? You're the guy with all the money. So this test rig here, now I looked it up last night. And I'll probably have to look it up again, but I believe that, oh, there it is. I put it on there backwards, but the number, you can't see the number, it's so smudged up. STB, okay, Soggy Toilet Barf, or Sam Tom Boy, 6301. That's a push button switch from Napa. It's an Eklund switch. It's supposed to, now, you're wondering what the switch is. It's not a horn switch. I have this is a starter switch on 11.5 horse Briggs & Stratton with no relay. I found out later on, I figured it was enough for the starter. Well, I found out later on the starter draws between 30 and 50 amps depending on the load on it. With the push button handles 60. So this isn't some slouch. STB 6301. No, what's the point? No, the point here is you can test your dang coil on the bench, or even on the machine if you're wondering if your points of condenser are the problem, or your coil's the problem. Well, let's find out. No, we're saying now enough times like everybody else on YouTube, huh? Anyway, here's your battery. One leg, the hot leg, just take the ignition switch out of it. That would normally, be in here someplace. Just take it out. Why? Because you have a switch in the circuit right there. Granted, it's on the ground side, but still, just remember this is hot. And if you connect this in any manner and it arcs, then you know you have a problem already. Internal ground in the coil. So, you're going to run this up here to your positive terminal on a negative ground machine. Your hot lead is going to be positive to the plus side of the coil. Just logic. Now, if this, I know. Stop saying now. So if there is also now and so, two overused words. If this is a positive ground tractor, then you're going to do the opposite. The battery will be switched and the coil will be switched, but it's always positive, positive, negative to negative. And the ground is whatever is decided. You can have positive ground. The only difference is you turn the battery connections around and you turn your coil around. It's just that simple. I don't know how it works in a coil because it's grounded within the circuit, inside the coil body. It's not grounded to the case. They will spark without being grounded from the case. True story. So somewhere in there they have a separate, because you have to have a full cycle. So that's why. Anyway, because I've swapped them. I've turned them to go from positive to negative ground, but usually it's 6 to 12 volt, you're getting a different coil. Now, here we are again. Hot's hooked to the plus. The negative side, you're going to go back to points condenser and distributor. That's what you're replacing, the distributors on the hot side, or the ground side, I mean. The hot side's wide open and straight, so remember this is all live. All of this, up to here, up to here. So as long as you remember that, you'll be in good shape. If you make any mistakes. See if I can get rid of the glare. You hooked up your switches here. Now I tied all this together with tape. But there's your regular condenser lead here to the hot side of the points, just as if it was in the machine. This is your ground side of the points here. Well, where's that ground? To the case of the distributor. And here, the case of the condenser, grounding here, and then finally here. And I put that ground in there just to show if that's a negative ground machine. There you are. Well, if it was negative ground, then these two are showing that it's the same thing. Alright, now what do? You take, it's a push button, momentary. Click, click, click. Look at your spark plug. Cool. It's sparking, arcing. Great. Now remember one thing? No. It's said it again, but this time it's important. Now remember one thing. This is a ground. The body of the spark plug has to have the same ground as your battery. That completes your circuit. You say, but that's different voltage. The voltage is used up in the spark. All of it. So you're just finishing the circuit for the amp flow. That's all. Okay? But that has to be grounded on something that the condenser and the battery is all grounded on. It's important. Now mine, I had everything grounded in a vise, and it worked excellent. So, there's the word again, but it fits. You're pushing, click, 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 and then you're getting spark, or you're not. If you are getting spark, this is great. Now this is the second spark plug, say a D21, a D23, or if some of you know you have a spark tester, which is the same thing with a gator clip that's spot welded to the side of one of the hex flats. Yeah, I've got two. I used to have 3 or 4 of them, but I've made some. I had an old L78 Mercury outboard spark plug that had a wider than normal gap in it, like 70 thousandths or something, or a little more. No, that was darn near 1/8 inch, so it was, give it around 100 thousandths range. Briggs and Stratton's old test used to be 166 thousandths. I don't know why that, but that's what they wanted. But this one is considerably wider. You're talking, your average one is darn near 1/4 inch if you take the side electrode off. This is close to 3/8. It's a nice wide gap. They say, well, that's crazy. Well, 5/16 to 3/8 tells you it's 15 to 20,000 volts, which means your coil is working well and properly. Well, why would you want it to get near, someplace near its maximum, to find out if it's arcing internally and causing trouble there? Because if you can, when you're pushing the button and you hear click, 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 snap, 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 and that's going along, and all of a sudden you hear a thud, 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 thud. You want to know where the thud's coming from. Be coming internal from the coil, could be coming from here. You got a bad carbon spot in the switch, or your condenser's bad. Well, you've got the test condenser, and that doesn't get used like the one on the machine. So, how would you test a condenser, some of you might ask? Well, then you have to change your rig here. Seriously. If you've tested this and this is all working, and now you're one of those that, I want to test my condenser. Well, if you have a way to disconnect, just put the condenser in the circuit here. They could use a little hose clamp, just big enough to go around this, and put the wire up against the case, and then connect the wire on the other end with whatever connector you want to use, and try it. What's it going to do? Not work. But keep everything else in the system as it is. That'll give you an idea. The original coil and the condenser. That'll tell you. Well, I want to test the points that way too. Well, that's kind of irrelevant. You have to clean the points and check them with an ohm meter. That'll tell you as much as you need to know. But what you don't know is, after all of this, is going back to this part. You replace the distributor, okay, with your points and condenser. You pulled this out and put your condenser in. That's working. You cleaned your points and you've checked it to be sure that when they're open, you're on the stud and you're on the base, and you're open and closing the points to be sure that there's nothing grounded. You've checked your connection straps on your points to be sure they're not touching the body, correct? But one thing that usually gets missed, quite often gets missed, is checking the resistance from the plate. That's correct. From the plate, the points plate, inside the distributor to the body of the distributor, and from that point also through the body to the block ground, to be sure that's grounded. I've run into several cases in the last 45 years where the distributor didn't ground to the block well because the bolt had rusted, hold down forks had rusted, and there was a gap, or a gasket between, which was supposed to be there, between the base and the block. Now, then you pull it up out and you clean everything off and you put it back on and you make sure it's grounded. And if you have to, yeah, I'd put a ground strap on there. How would you do it? Anything you do is going to be ugly. You either have to use one of the plate mounting screws. You could put a wire from there to the base bolt, but that's going to look stupid. Just clean it up as you're supposed to, because occasionally that steel plate to the aluminum distributor housing, if too much moisture gets in there, the aluminum, suffers electrolysis and breaks the connection. Other times I've had too much dirt between the condenser and the plate, too much dirt between the points in the plate. Rare, because the screws usually take care of that, but occasional. It's usually between the plate and the distributor housing and the distributor housing to the block. Those are critical. A lot of them, though, have that, I guess you'd call it a slip collar. That's one of the reasons that they have trouble with oil leaking up out of these things, is you put the distributor in and it has a slip collar on it with a clamp bolt, and then it clamps over, bolts down over to the block. Well, there's no real down pressure on these things, so you get a little leak out of them all the time. But there again, you've got another one that those normally don't cause a problem, but they can if the bolt has too much crap in it from rusting and the clamp's laying against the block. The clamp around the distributor usually doesn't cause much trouble, but occasionally you'll get it. Just rock the thing back and forth a few times. You're out of time. Well, you're trying to find out why it ain't sparking. I wouldn't worry too much about timing right now. Just saying, order of priorities. If you don't have power to the coil, you have a problem. If you don't have power out of the coil, you have a problem. If you don't have a connection to the distributor properly, bad wire, you have a problem. If your through connector is a problem, well, you have a problem. And your ground's all the way to the block. So if you don't have spark, its timing is totally irrelevant at this point. Now, once you get some decent spark, now we're talking. Another one that some of you are going to come up with is you open and close the points with a screwdriver or plastic. You got to do it with something insulated. I've done it with screwdrivers, but usually I touch something else. One of the ways I've tested the circuit to find out if it's the points or not is close the points or open. Either one works. But sometimes you open the points up and you put the screwdriver and stick it down between the 2 points and tap it like this. And if you get tick, 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 then you know your points are really bad. And if you do it and it doesn't do anything, but you know you have power to your stationary or your moving point through the spring, then the contact, put your probe on there and to ground and turn the key on, get power to it. And if you got power there with an open, then I go between the top of the stationary point and not the point, but the behind the point on the arm, and over here on the stationary, not on the point, on the metal. Tick, 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 tick. Now you know your points are so bad you've got to grind a few thousandths off of them because they've been arced so much, they've been overheated, and it changes the nature. Hey, said nature of the metal is there, and they lose contact. Well, those are the best things I can do for you now, but remember that STB 6301 for your switch. I have to go take care of my critters. You have a good night. Wait a minute. It's good morning.